another. So information
Dan,
still coming in.
How did these men, the 19 of them that were killed, the suicide hijackers, how'd they get in the country?
Different ways. We don't know with regard to all of them. We do know there's speculation that some of them came in through Canada. There is speculation that some of them came in through Saudi Arabian Airlines, that they may have been working for the airline. And some of them had expired visas. No question that if you laid these guys out at immigration before this happened, a lot of them would have been booted out of the country.
Right. But the thing that I found really offensive was the idea that one of them got in there, a couple of them got in here on student visas so they could learn to fly a plane to destroy us.
Well, you know, look, obviously in retrospect, it's very difficult to accept that notion. Obviously, there were no requirements on people who are teaching people to fly, which say you have to go through the following checks, you have to investigate backgrounds. Look, that may all change now, but before this happened, that simply wasn't in place.
Let me ask you about this. There's a Washington Post poll number today, which I found interesting and maybe troubling to civil liberties people in this country who are concerned about civil liberties. Do you support new laws making it easier for the FBI and other authorities to investigate people they suspect of terrorism involvement? 92% of the people want to see those laws toughened. In other words, to increase the amount of options the government has to try to find out what people are up to. What do you make of that as a...
He got interested in this very nice lady. She was a bookkeeper.
Trying to conceal anything. I mean, we've heard so much of it publicly from the president.
Had been, up till Tuesday, extremely sensitive about any type of profiling. Right. Meaning, in any way suggesting that because someone has an Arab surname...
No, but if somebody comes from that particular part of the world.
Right. No. The same point, though. You know, there has never been a sense, apart from sort of countries. I mean, look, when people are at immigration, no question, people looking at those passports have different ways of evaluating different countries. I think you're going to see more of that domestically now as well. Dan
Abrams will be talking about that one for a couple of days, I'm sure. Coming up, former presidential advisor David Gergen, former CIA director James Woolsey, and historian Doris Kearns Goodwin. We'll be right back.
For countless millennia, we've gathered to wonder about the night sky. Now you can bring home the universe with Starry Night software from space.com. Explore planets and galaxies, discover asteroids and comets, and reach for the stars. Starry Night is easy to use. Your desktop computer becomes a powerful time machine and starship, journeying 20,000 light years into space. And Starry Night is now available at Best Buy, Electronics Boutique, and CompUSA stores. Be there for sunrise on Saturn. Investigate new worlds that could be home to extraterrestrial life. Become an instant astronomer with or without a telescope. You'll see something amazing every time you launch. Popular Science says it's the closest you can come to space travel without a heavy suit and a lot of training. Starry Night, bring home the universe. It's a perfect gift for intelligent life.
A million uses and counting. The new 210 horsepower supercharged Nissan Xterra. Still everything you need, nothing you don't.
My dad says Poland Spring may have the best tasting water on earth. My mom says that's because it's natural spring water from deep in the woods of Maine. Dad says home delivery is real convenient. Now we never run out. Mom says the new bottle is real convenient. She says the built-in handle makes it a cinch to put out.
Home delivery of Poland's
at the best of times, not to mention the worst of times, is very complex and will be very intense in the days ahead. Now let us go to the status of the investigation today. ABC's Brian Ross is with us here in New York. Brian, pick it up on the status of today, if you would.
Peter, today the FBI released many new details about those responsible for the terrorist attacks.
It says it now counts 19 hijackers. 7 of them were trained as pilots. Many of them had been living in this country for years legally in South Florida, and others had only recently arrived. The most revealing details involved those on board American Flight 11, the first to crash into the World Trade Center. According to the FBI, 2 of the hijackers were up front in seats 2A and 2B, just steps from the cockpit. Both men were trained pilots. One of them identified as Wael Ashiri, who federal authorities consider part of the Osama bin Laden terror organization.
Shiri himself came from Saudi Arabia just 2 weeks ago, and he left behind with his family a suicide note. He had been trained in Afghanistan at a particular camp in hand-to-hand combat training, which is kind of interesting given the assignment he had, which was to board one of these planes, hijack it, and control the passengers in the cabin while others broke into the pilot's cabin.
Several rows back on Flight 11, 2 more terrorist pilots. Mohammed Atta in 8D, who trained as a pilot in Florida and was on a U.S. watch list because of suspected terrorist connections. The owner of a bar in Hollywood, Florida, has told the FBI that several nights before the attacks, Atta and a companion came in and got drunk.
He looked at me with somewhat of an arrogant look, and he reached into his pocket and he pulled out a wad of money, and he threw it on the bar, and he says, "I don't have a money issue, I'm an airline pilot."
On United Flight 175, the second to hit, the 5 terrorists included yet another Florida-trained pilot, Marwan Al-Shihi.
The fact that there were a number of individuals that happened to receive training at flight schools here is news, quite obviously. If we had understood that to be the case, we would have, perhaps one could have averted this.
The plane that crashed into the Pentagon, American Flight 77, also had 5 terrorists aboard, coming from both San Diego and the New York, New Jersey area.
This was a terrorist spectacular. I mean, basically you had 19 people who committed suicide.
And the jet that crashed in Pennsylvania, United 93, was commandeered by 4 hijackers, who also had addresses in Delray Beach, Florida, but were in fact, like most of the others, citizens of Saudi Arabia and Egypt.
These are the people that bin Laden depends on mostly, the Egyptians and the Saudis, and they comprise the majority of the inner core. Surely he expects some kind of retaliation, and I think that explains why today his followers have left the camps. The camps in Afghanistan are totally empty, and bin Laden himself has seemed to gone to ground.
Peter, now that the FBI says it knows who the hijackers was, what it wants to know now are who were those who supported them. To that end, the Attorney General today released a list to law enforcement agencies across the country of 100 people who are wanted for questioning. 100 people who, if they are found and stopped, will be detained. Peter?
Thanks, Brian. Brian Ross on the investigation. When President Bush was here in New York today, he was asked very directly by the reporters who were traveling with him whether or not there was a suspect. Here's how that exchange went.
Thank you all.
Please go back out the way we came in. Everyone, please.
Okay, the President again greeting relief workers today, and then indeed there was an exchange between the President and the press about a suspect.
To gather all the evidence that can be gathered to find those who may still be in our country if they are here. I'm satisfied that our planning for possible future actions is going on course. Most of all, I'm satisfied and I'm pleased to be an American. This is a proud moment for our country. Out of this terrible devastation and ruin, the greatness of America shines forth. And I'm here just to, as best as I possibly can to thank the American people who are helping here and to give comfort to those who hurt. A lot of the firefighters who we saw had tears in their eyes, and because they lost loved ones and their brothers are missing, or and it's a sad moment to be with them. And the least I can do is to give them a hug and maybe encourage them some.
Well, I was asking our control room to continue to run that because it's important to hear from the president under any circumstance, even though maybe it's just best if I paraphrase what happened. The president was asked directly, does he have a suspect? And he said yes. And then there was a very quick clarification from the White House press secretary, Ari Fleischer, and it was who said, no, the president did not believe that there was one particular suspect, but there were indeed suspects, plural. And so that's what you were supposed to hear there, the direct exchange between the press and the president on that subject, but it is good to hear the president on the subject of the country and the crisis today. I'd like to turn for a little while now to the economic dimension of this, because while everybody has emphasized and everybody believes that the principle
or anger at those groups or morality or whatever, do we have a good job right now? You've been head of the CIA. Do we have good potential? Let's not give away any agents here. Do we have the potential to recruit people who can penetrate these groups?
Yes, but probably these days we rely very heavily on what's called liaison relationships, that is intelligence exchanges with foreign intelligence services that are also working against these groups. And that's part of the problem. If, let's say, Saddam Hussein gets a lot of oil money and starts suborning the intelligence services of some of his neighbors, we may have a harder time. American case officers recruiting spies inside terrorist organizations, certainly it happens. It doesn't happen as frequently as it should. Right. And one reason it doesn't happen as frequently as it should is what I was talking about before, the guidelines on the CIA that came in the aftermath of the Harbury case.
Why didn't the Saudi embassy warn us, the Saudi intelligence people warn us that there's a guy floating around this country taking pilot lessons to blow up our whatever, and he's running around on a Saudi passport, a United Arab Emirates driver's license. Where is the United Arab Emirates warning us there's a guy with a license over here who might be trouble?
I don't know. That's something that has to be worked really by the State Department, the consular people, with the people who grant visas overseas and the people who in other countries who come in, and they work hard.
Can we rely on the kindness of strangers?
No, no. You have to do a lot of this yourself, and you have to work hard with not only the strangers, but the friends, trade information, work together with them as collaborators.
Harvey, I want to give you an assignment. Stop this from happening again. How do you do it?
You have to resolve and understand that this is going to be a long, protracted war. This is not going to be something, Chris, that the American public's ever seen before. This is not going to be one strike by air. It's not going to be clean. It's not going to be surgical. People are going to get hurt both here and outside the country, and you're going to need to ratchet up the interest by the general public. I believe, Chris, that the American public now, I think, understands. You know, they've seen a Tom Clancy novel unfold before their eyes. They thought they were watching, you know, Bruce
Willis.
Right,
and we haven't focused yet on this because we can't handle the picture we're looking at day after day. I still can't handle the picture what I'm looking at.
Exactly. And you know, Chris, I was involved in a civil litigation against the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey back a few years ago, and we had warning about that a couple of years before that the B2 level is you know, a disaster waiting to happen. But you know what? We let it mull, and this is what we're left with.
Let me ask you a tricky question. We've got wonderful patriotic Arab Americans in this country. They come from Lebanon, they come from Egypt, all over. Do they have a role to play here?
Yes.
What is it?
The key thing is that the president needs to convince the Muslim community in the United States that we all are adamantly opposed to persecuting Muslims, Arabs, people from Mideastern countries because they're here and because of their faith. The vast majority of Muslims and people from Arab countries here are wonderful people. They naturally feel defensive when what happens is, for example, as a Pakistani friend of mine told me today, his boy got beat up in school. Yeah. Simply because he's from the Mideast.
What about the positive side? And if you run an Arab restaurant and you've got customers that are furtive and hanging around the corner cutting deals, shouldn't somebody be blowing the whistle on these characters?
Well, that's the point. Once we have taken the steps to ensure that the Muslim community and people from the Mideast and the United States know that we're on their side, nothing's going to happen the way it happened to Japanese Americans in the aftermath of Pearl Harbor. I think they will help us by helping ferret out some of these people who burrowed into their communities.
I think it's time for action on that front as well as others. Anyway, former director of the CIA, James Woolsey, Harvey Kushner, an expert in this horrible stuff. Coming up, we're going to talk to one of the world's leading experts on Osama bin Laden himself. We'll be right back.
Of Goldman Sachs International. Nice to see you again, Bob.
Be with you, Peter.
Let me
actual terrorist perpetrators, would-be operatives. You have to go against all terrorists. Because today they may be fighting against the United States, tomorrow they may, or against somebody else, but they cooperate with each other. They're international networks. And last but not least, as Mr. Woolsey said, we depend a lot on the goodwill and the efforts of sister international intelligence agencies. And if we want them to help us, we may as well help them also.
Okay, let's talk about bin Laden. Where is he?
In Afghanistan.
Is he safe from us?
Oh, yeah.
Why? Who's protecting him?
First of all, the Taliban are protecting him. The leadership is protecting him.
So they're lying when they say that they've got him under house arrest? Or are they? They say he can't even use a fax machine.
That's probably true because they don't have electricity.
But wait a minute. You know, there's a wonderful line in World War II when the Nazis invaded Russia. And Churchill gave the best speech, one of the best speeches of the war. He said, anybody who's on our side, anybody who fights Hitler's on our side. Anybody who joins them is on their side, on Hitler's side. There are no neutrals. So is Afghanistan playing neutral here? Is that their game? And should we just say, choose him or us?
No, Afghanistan is siding with him and should be treated accordingly.
So we should declare war on Afghanistan?
I don't know if there's an Afghanistan today. There's a Taliban leadership.
Should we declare war on the Taliban?
There's no reason why not.
Well, that's the problem, you know. The United States could be on how many fronts in the next couple of weeks? If we fight every terrorist in the world, even Islamic fundamentalist terrorists, even that subset, if we declare war on the Taliban because they're allies of it, Syria because they're supporting them, Libya because they're supporting them, Iran and Iraq, we're going to have a lot of enemies in the next couple of weeks.
Well, we have to take a step back and look at who are the Islamist terrorists of the world today. Who provide them the vital services? Who provide them the vital training? Who provide them with the other wherewithal that enable them to carry out sophisticated operation of the kind that...
Who do you suspect helped bin Laden do this, if he did it? And
probably my list would include today Syria, Iraq, Iran, perhaps Pakistan, perhaps Sudan, to a lesser extent. But
why is our president then talking about perhaps striking up some sort of coalition which might include Pakistan?
Because just like the great jihad of the 1980s, you have to get to Afghanistan. They don't have any beaches. You can either get through the former Soviet Union. They're not enthusiastic about it. We can get through Iran. They're definitely not enthusiastic about it, or through Pakistan. We don't have too many choices.
Do you see us as doing a land war involving perhaps something like Desert Storm, where we used Saudi Arabia in that case to go after the liberation of Kuwait? Would you see us doing the same kind of thing where we launch an attack on Afghanistan, on bin Laden from Pakistan?
If we're thinking about that, we'd better start reading about all the Anglo-Afghan wars and about the Soviet experience in Afghanistan before we do anything.
I know, it didn't work out too well. What do you think is the best way, given the limits of time? The American people are united behind their president overwhelmingly right now. You know America, we all do. We changed the subject. Maybe in 3 months we'll be thinking about something else, the Super Bowl. The president has to act in a reasonable period of time and get something done. What can he do in a reasonable period of time with the American people behind him, which involves casualties, obviously?
Convince the American public that they have to prepare for the long run, endure more terrorism.
You mean 10 years?
Perhaps. You have to change a whole generation in the developing world.
What kind of victories might we score in a 10-year program, campaign?
Have a Muslim world that will be friendly, cooperative, rather than radicalized and hostile, that will be an excellent market for our product and a good partner in a brave new post-Cold War world.
Can we knock out bin Laden within a year?
No.
Why not?
Because he's being protected. That to get to wherever he is right now in the middle of some remote valley in Afghanistan in a bunker several stories underground is just mission impossible.
What's the size of his force right now, people who will kill for him? How many people are active operators in his army?
Tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands?
Yep. That's the killers, not the supporters, enthusiastic.
Tens of thousands, and they're all located in Afghanistan?
No, they're located here, located in Western Europe, throughout the Middle East, in Afghanistan, throughout Central Asia, throughout Russia, all the way to the Philippines, Indonesia, etc.
He has a very wealthy, father? Who's paying the payroll for all these troops?
The guys in New York, Northeast Washington, etc.
You believe that? Americans?
I know that.
Arab Americans?
No.
Who are these guys in Northeast Washington, you say?
He's controlling the Taliban drug trade that nets about, sells in the West, nets about $7 to $8 billion a year. Out of that, he gets 15 to 20% for the jihad. That's
so they're selling drugs here in inner city Washington.
Yep.
And making their payrolls that way.
Or New York or wherever it is.
How fast has he grown? Just give me, because I think this might be pretty frightening. You say tens of thousands. Where was he 5 years ago? How many people were working for bin Laden 5 years ago?
In '96, when he arrived, we had about 2,000 tops.
So he's growing exponentially.
Yeah, because of ideological conviction. He's not paying his people.
And those people who died this Tuesday, killing our people by up to 5,000 people, they were driven by ideology, not by payroll.
Ideology. They were doing God's work.
Do you buy the theory that it's economic? I just heard Vladimir Posner say it's all economic. These guys can't get jobs.
No.
They're engineers. They're skilled people. Why'd they do it?
They may be radicalized. Individuals may be radicalized because of jobs. Individuals may be radicalized because of other reasons. But the problem is to go back to the key issue. The fact that an individual is radicalized does not make him a terrorist. He needs the training, preparation, support of the sponsoring state. The moment you take away the sponsoring state, you reduce the capabilities of these radicalized people to do damage.
Yosef Bodansky, thanks for joining us. You know your field. I want to thank him. He's author of the book Bin Laden, the man who declared war on America. Hussein, I'm sorry, I get your name. Ibish, I don't know why. It's hard to read that. He's the president of the American Arab Anti-Discrimination League.
Director.
We were just talking about your discrimination director.
Yeah,
you know, we were talking a moment ago with Jim Woolsey, the former CIA director. And I said, what's the role, positively, no negatives, what's the positive role for Arab Americans on this front? Because we are in war, the president says.
Well, I think Arab Americans realize we have been viciously attacked. And there were many, maybe 200 or more Arab Americans in those buildings. And the whole society has been attacked. So obviously we have to do something. We have to do something vigorous and effective. So I think it's the role of the Arab American community, about 4 million people, to join with the rest of the nation in supporting the government as long as they're doing effective and vigorous things in our defense. And that's really what we have to do. I think that there has to be also a period of forbearance while the rest of the United States comes to terms with what has happened. And I think we need to be less sensitive than usual about some things that might have offended us before. And that's important, and we're going to do that.
Let me talk to you about profiling and all the tricky things, because I think there's a difference, I would argue, between profiling an ethnic group because, they always do this kind of thing, and looking for a particular crowd which swims in that sea, which is different.
Well, I think we have to agree with that. I mean, you know, investigation is important. Obviously, there's a serious security problem. And I think, again, there has to be a certain forbearance. I think what we want, all of us, is effective security. We've had a profiling system in place at airports since 1996 that, as we have documented, has bordered on profiling and has been completely ineffective.
How did that work? What didn't you like?
What we don't like is the effect of it, where we have documented that it really has ended up, whether by in practice or in theory, we can't tell because we don't get to see the criteria, I mean, obviously. But in practice, it has meant the singling out of Arab Americans all the time, but without one single case the FAA has been able to show us of an actual security risk being identified, and certainly didn't stop this action. So what we need is stringent security.
They sound like the old days of Joe McCarthy. He found everybody but a communist.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, what we need is stringent security, examine everyone, look at behavior, and toughly. But I don't think we want to rely on stereotypes because it doesn't work. I mean, that's my main objection, really. It's not only is it sort of unfair, but really it doesn't work.
Did it surprise you that fellas could come in this country from the Mideast or whatever, show up across the border in Canada, get flight training on student visas, and then all the time be engaged in a plan to kill people by the thousands, that they could swim in the sea of Arab Americans, or they could walk around and fake that whole thing. They weren't Arab Americans, they were Arab anti-Americans.
They're swimming in the whole Sea of America. I mean, they're not seeking refuge in isolated American communities. And these guys are swimming around our whole society, as far as we can tell, if these are the guys who did it, and I don't really doubt that. Am I surprised? Not really. In a sense, that's maybe the price we pay for being an open society. I don't think the appropriate reaction would be to shut down entirely. Obviously, we need to address this very seriously, but I don't think we want to close our borders. I don't think we want to retreat in an insular manner. We shouldn't do it. It's against our basic character as a country, and it's also not really an option we have given our role in the world.
This is really tough, isn't it, for Arab Americans? Because you as a group, believe the United States is tilted too far to Israel. You feel like we haven't shown adequate sympathy for especially the poor people who live in the West Bank, and they're a fourth world nation in many ways. How do you deal with that conflict?
It's a nightmare. It's been a nightmare for us because, as I said, we were targeted ourselves, and we were victimized as much as any other group of Americans by this despicable, heinous crime. And at the same time, some of our fellow citizens do point the finger at us, singling us out for culpability because of our ethnicity.
Yeah.
So it's a double nightmare.
understand.
It's really a trauma, and we just have to come together and not attack each other. So
Please
we
come
will
back again.
absolutely.
Hussein Ibish, thank you. He's been here before. Thanks. Coming up, David Gergen, a smart man. We'll see how smart he is tonight. And Doris Kearns Goodwin for the Historic Perspective, both coming back in just a moment.
I remember 20 years ago how they turned the racing world upside down. First by introducing a race car with quattro all-wheel drive, and second by having a woman drive it.
When we were deciding where to build this plant, we wanted quality of life and plenty of electric power. This area is real nice, but the electric co-op is pretty small. Not a problem. They're part of this group of over 500 co-ops nationwide, Touchstone Energy. Our co-op worked with us to make sure we got the right power and the right price. So we built the plant, and we get to live here.
And we shine as one.
Guys, move a little to the side. Excuse me, ma'am. Do you have an idea what it says? ING. But do you know what comes before it?
There's a different way to look at your money.
What's it say?
ING. It's not an ending, it's a beginning.
Ladies and gentlemen, Vida Nelson is our guest. She's the editor and publisher of the Money Paper. We're talking about dividend reinvestment plans. Vida, how does one actually get started?
All you need is one share of stock. You can send from as little as $10 or even $10,000 without paying any commissions to a broker. These are the solid companies. These are the companies that have paid dividends for many, many years. And the reason no one knows about these plans is because no one has any vested interest in promoting them. If you pick from among the 873 different companies in our guide to dividend reinvestment plans, you are doing yourself the biggest favor in the world.
And you might even have fun doing it.
Where can I get some information on the Money Paper?
Call now. You'll get the guide to dividend reinvestment plans at a special promotional price. It has every company that accepts direct investments. Plus, you get a free copy of the Money Paper. You'll see how easy it is to invest without a broker.
Get the guide for $9 plus shipping. Call 1-800-622-7999.
Well, joining me now is former presidential advisor David Gergen, now with U.S. News & World Report, and presidential historian Doris Kearns Goodwin. I want you both to tackle this question. America feels more exposed to danger, individual danger, than ever before. David, how does the president deal with that?
Well, Chris, right now, of course, he's sitting there with 84% support in some of the polls, and the people have rallied around, as they do so often around our president, as they always do, in fact, during a time of crisis. The Congress is behind him. Patriotic fervor has risen to very, very high levels. In a 48-hour period, Walmart sold 300,000 American flags. So right now, he has got the power and the support of the people to act, and I think if he acts in the next 10 days or so and drops some bombs and hits a few sites to begin this campaign, he'll have overwhelming support from the American people, indeed, I think, from much of the world. His hard task is to hold us together over the long haul. You raised the question earlier. It's not a question of our capability. It is a question of our will. Do we have the will to hold in here for a long, difficult struggle against people in shadows at times when we're going to start having our own body bags? We know from history that we have entered conflicts in the recent past with enormous enthusiasm, but have soured on them very rapidly when Americans start coming home in body bags. If the body bags are here at home, will we have the stomach for a long campaign? I think that's the real challenge for George W. Bush. Prepare us for that long struggle and then lead us through it.
Well, that's the question, Doris. How does this president hold the country behind him as he conducts this long-term and short-term campaign?
Well, you know, today is a perfect example in a certain sense of the mysterious role that a president can play in a moment of crisis when he becomes the symbolic head of the nation. When you looked at that prayer service, which was in some ways a metaphor for America because all the races and creeds were there, they had an Islamic leader speaking, and when George Bush said, you know, sometimes people learn about themselves in periods of adversity, so true for a nation, it's almost as if a president grows larger at the beginning when he's got what David was talking about, the resolve, the courage, the will of the people. That's that mysterious connection. But what Roosevelt had to face in World War II was not only a day like Pearl Harbor, a day like Tuesday, but weeks and months of failure and defeat before it finally turned around. And that takes a very different quality in a president. It takes patience, it takes sensitivity to the public to know when to go before them. You can't be going every day. You can't have these great symbolic moments every day, as good as they were today. You have to pace yourself. It's amazing to remember that Roosevelt only delivered 2 or 3 fireside chats a year, knowing that if he got on the air, on the radio too much, he would lose his ability to dramatize the cause. So you have to have a long-range plan that is very hard for Americans and hard for a new leader, I think, to absorb, because we think it'll be over in a couple weeks.
Chris?
In terms of immediate danger, it seems, David, that what people are afraid of right now is their own vulnerability. All the news reports suggest that we still have a lot of potential hijackers or perhaps even hijacked plans afoot already in this country. It's not over there in somewhere in Afghanistan.
All the evidence suggests that there are still cells of terrorists in this country who are quite active. Dick Cheney would not have been sent to Camp David did the Secret Service not have credible evidence of some continuing threat at the White House. That's an extraordinary step to take. I can't remember that happening in the past. As you know, the perimeter of the White House has been extended now way over to 18th in Pennsylvania, and I'm told that White House staff members, if you want to have somebody come in to visit you, you have to physically walk out to the gate and get that person way over in 18th in Pennsylvania. That's a couple of blocks, 3 blocks away from the White House. I've never seen that. That has to say that our top intelligence people, our top security people believe the danger is still very real.
Right. Well, we just heard from Yusuf Badansky, who said that this guy, bin Laden, if it's him, and it looks like it is, has 10,000 trained soldiers around the world that he could put into action.
Well, that's right. And I don't think we should panic. I don't think we should frighten people right now, but it is a time when there is continuing danger and people have to be careful. But let me follow up on one thing Doris said, because I've been trying to figure out how might you, if you're sitting in the White House, might you like the scenario to unfold so that you prepare people for the long haul? As Doris said, that you do have that Rooseveltian capacity to help enlighten people. And I would suggest, Chris, this scenario: if we're about over the next several days to unleash the beginnings of an attack, let's say we go out and hit 2 or 3 sites next Tuesday. I don't know when. Well, let's take Tuesday. Then I think if the president were to go before a joint session of Congress, say on Thursday night, in which he really talks through what the nature of this threat is, what is it we're facing, I think he has yet to do that. He has been much better in the day-to-day. The day was much, much better than he was on Tuesday night when he had the prayer service. But he has yet to really bring us into his confidence and lay out the threat and where we're going.
But you know, the president's been very careful to talk in very general terms. He says the enemies of freedom, they don't like our freedom, when in fact we think it's probably bin Laden, who doesn't like what we did in terms of occupying Saudi Arabia during Desert Storm, a man with a particular beef against the United States for religious reasons. When do you think the president's going to come out and stop calling people cowards, stop saying this is senseless, and say we've got a very smart, state-of-the-art, zealous enemy out there that we have to beat, and it's going to be really tough, Doris?
I think the problem for him is the problem, again, that Roosevelt had to face. You have to educate the public who knows a little bit about all this, but all of us are learning every day what this terrorist threat is and how far it extends to various countries and to this large hatred of us with people, as you say, who are anything but cowardly. And 5-minute speeches can't do that. It's going to take weeks of preparing, I think, for a speech. We may need maps. We may need an understanding of where these people are, in what countries, what has caused them to hate us so much. And that's the huge role that a president has to play, to be the shaper and molder of public opinion and make us understand that this is a sustained war. So far, the large abstractions that we have mobilized our spirit, and everybody's aroused to want to do something, but until we understand what we're going to be asked to do and how many people it's going to take and what our role is going to be, there's still a sense of being in limbo, I think, for many people. Well, the problem, of course, is, and Doris, you're the expert on World War II, that the president at that time, the man you've written about so often, FDR, had a clear route. He had to get to Tokyo. He had to get to Berlin. You knew what victory looked like is when you won the war of annihilation. How do you win a war of annihilation when you don't have that roadmap? How do you know you've gotten bin Laden or his people or his mentality? How do you know that, Doris? Well, I'm not sure that they knew that they had such a clear route even then. You know, sometimes when victory occurs at the end, it all seemed like it was inevitable. But at the time, it was so close for Germany to have won, so close for us to be distracted by having to go to Japan, which we didn't want to do, that we might have lost the central figure we were after, which was Hitler. So I think right now you've got to figure out, okay, bin Laden may be the central figure right now, but there are all these other places we may have to attack, and what is the timing? When do we do it? When do we have a victory that gives the people the sense, like we had Midway, it was a victory that gave people morale, which was necessary before we went on to the next thing.
Yeah, because one of the things he faces right now is if he were to come out tomorrow morning and say, here are the 4 places where we think these terrorists are, here's where the camps are and everything like that, before he's hit them, he will obviously signal exactly where he's going with his first round. So I think he's got to go with this first round and then come out and tell us what he thinks we're facing, why we hit where we hit, where we might, with suggestions about where we're going, and lay this out. But I think Doris is absolutely right. The educational role is one of the greatest challenges George W. Bush is going to face.
Well, he could use you, David. He could use you, David. I'll tell you, because he needs somebody who knows how to do this thing. Education's a big part of this, I agree. Doris Kearns-Goodwin, it's great to have you back.
You're
David
welcome.
Gergen, thank you. I'm Chris Matthews.
Remember the days when we'd squash each other like bugs?
Yeah. Remember when you'd steal our sales guys?
And you'd borrow our patents. Now, my website links to your site.
We're e-commerce partners.
At Ernst & Young, our objective financial advice can help with any new relationship so you can move ahead with confidence.
So you want to merge?
Sure. You'll love working for me.
Ernst & Young, from thought to finish.
Attention, Carnival has just announced incredible savings on cruises to the Caribbean. Now you can cruise for a great price or from as little as $14 a month. Stay tuned. A fabulous, relaxing, fun-filled Carnival cruise makes a great vacation, and the Vacation Store is the best way to get there. Today's Carnival is taking funship cruising to a whole new level. There are more choices, more pampering, and just more fun. Enjoy staterooms that are on average 50% larger than other cruise lines. Plus, fabulous food, dazzling entertainment, exotic ports of call, and it's all included in one low price. In fact, right now you can enjoy an amazing 7-day tropical vacation at a truly incredible rate. The brochure price for these cruises starts at $13.49 per person, but only through this special TV offer, you can enjoy 7 sunny days in the Caribbean from as little as $5.99 per person. That's over half off the regular price. You won't find a better offer. We guarantee it. And if you call now, you'll receive an extra $50 off the price of your stateroom, a double upgrade on selected sailings, and a Carnival camera. That's a bonus value worth up to $200. Free when you book today. And now it's even easier to enjoy a funship cruise with Carnival's Fun Finance Plan. Take a 3-day cruise from as little as $14 a month, or enjoy a 7-day cruise from as little as $28 a month. A great vacation has never been more affordable, so call now for details. Or you can check out our website at thevacationstore.com. You can even book online. The Vacation Store offers an exclusive best price guarantee. If you find a lower price on the identical Carnival cruise within 14 days of booking with us, we'll refund the difference. 3 to 17-day cruises are available, all backed by our best price guarantee. Just imagine all the excitement, fabulous fun, brilliant sun, exciting ports, and sensational food, all for one low price. Or choose to cruise from as little as $14 a month. So call 1-800-361-2747 or visit thevacationstore.com. You deserve the vacation of a lifetime. Call 1-800-361-2747. Then let the fun begin.
The Market Reopening Information Center on CNBC. Information you need to get back to business, including logistics on transportation to the financial district, security and safety procedures, public health information, employee notices, and live phone and email question response. Sunday, 4 to 8 p.m. Eastern on CNBC.
Tonight, tears replace shock and horror over the worst terrorist attack in history as the President of the United States shows up at Ground Zero, first offering his thanks and support to heroic rescue workers and later promising to rid the world of evil. Mr. Bush declared a national emergency, called up to 50,000 military reservists to duty, and won extraordinary power today from Congress to do battle, with all signs pointing to the Pentagon preparing for a real, full-fledged, all-out shooting war. Meanwhile, as hope fades for any of the 4,763 trade tower missing in New York, federal authorities said late today that the city of Atlanta may have been or may still be another intended target of the terrorists. There's also late word that the FBI has made its first arrest in the case. We'll tell you about that. Plus, former Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu joins us tonight to declare that the United States has received what he calls a wake-up call from hell. Stand by, it's all right now on Rivera Live.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
For this moment, at least, it almost seemed like a rally, but no defiant cheers could disguise the ugly truth that lay under the president's feet. Thousands of innocents still entombed and by now probably dead in the still smoldering ruins of the World Trade Center. Before his trip to New York, Mr. Bush and 4 of his predecessors attended a pain prayer service at the Washington National Cathedral, where the Reverend Billy Graham asked God to give wisdom and courage and strength to the president and to those around him, leaders who tonight are apparently preparing to lead this nation into war. Hi, everybody. I'm Geraldo Rivera in Los Angeles. Within the last hour, we have gotten word from a Justice Department official that the first arrest in this case has been made. The official tells NBC News that the FBI executed what's called a material witness warrant in New York for an unidentified person. The FBI believes this person has information pertinent to the case and may be a high risk of flight. We'll update this important breaking news throughout the hour as we learn more. As for those who orchestrated all this carnage, their horrifying success may now prove to be their undoing because they have hurt us so badly. Not since the Second World War has this nation been more united in our determination to punish those responsible. But it won't be easy and it won't be neat. Today, for example, Afghanistan's Taliban government warned of revenge if the U.S. attacks that country for harboring the apparent architect of Tuesday's disaster, Osama bin Laden. But Secretary of State Colin Powell spent the day working the phones, trying to build up a huge coalition of civilized countries that will support American actions. Meanwhile, the Justice Department is asking for public help tonight, hoping that the just-released names of the 19 hijackers will generate more tips helpful to the massive investigation. With over 4,000 leads already being checked out, FBI agents are now frantically searching the nation for anyone associated with the hijackers and who might still pose a danger. NBC News' Pete Williams filed this report just before the news that broke just an hour ago that an arrest has been made. Here's Pete.
A dramatic sign today that law enforcement agencies still fear additional attacks could come at any time in any fashion. At the borders, U.S. Customs agents at Alert Level 1, their highest, thoroughly checking every single car or truck lined up to enter the country from Mexico or Canada. In Washington, the Justice Department hands out a list of 19 people identified as the hijackers of the 4 planes. As these pictures emerge of some of the actual aircraft involved in Tuesday's suicide crashes, seen here on earlier flights, one of the 767s that crashed into the World Trade Center, and the actual 757 that slammed into the Pentagon.
To date, we have had
more than 36,000 total leads.
On American Flight 11, the first plane to hit the World Trade Center, 5 hijackers with recent addresses in Massachusetts and Florida. The first on the list said to be from the United Arab Emirates. United 175, the second to crash in New York, 5 hijackers, all with recent Florida addresses, 4 in Delray Beach. 5 more on American 77 that dived into the Pentagon, recently living in New York, New Jersey, Arizona, and California. And on United 93 that crashed in Pennsylvania, 3 of them also recently living in Delray Beach.
Even though these individuals are presumed to be dead, anyone with information about these individuals immediately contact an FBI field office.
Another list not made public is sent today by the FBI to the nation's state and federal police agencies and to the FAA and airlines. More than 100 names of some suspected associates of the hijackers or people the FBI thinks may know who other associates might be. But so far, no arrests.
Suffice it to say, if we believe that there's somebody in the United States who was associated with this conspiracy and we had evidence upon which to base a charge, we would have and would level that charge.
In the U.S. alone, more than 30 places searched, including this hotel in New Jersey at the request of the FBI, for a possible acquaintance of one of the hijackers. In Boston, a computer seized, officials say, that belonged to one of the hijackers, now being analyzed. And a control tower tape from the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania reveals an Arab-sounding voice warning passengers of a bomb on board, an apparent effort to control people on the plane. And the FBI presses the investigation worldwide, authorities detaining anyone who might have information. In the Philippines, a Saudi pilot who officials believe once went to a training school with one of the hijackers.
All right, thank you, Pete Williams. Just got this this word from the Associated Press that the FBI source on that led the FBI to warn the city of Atlanta and the city of Richmond, Virginia, that their cities might have been targeted by the terrorists. The FBI source has just failed a lie detector test. Failed a lie detector test. So this source, who apparently is an acquaintance of one of the hijackers and who suggested that the Federal Reserve banks in those 2 cities might be targeted, has failed the lie detector test. I also want to add that last night we told you this news, this stunning news, that 7 or 8 people, some of them posing as pilots, had been arrested in LaGuardia and JFK airports. It now turns out that they had nothing to do, the authorities now confirm, had nothing to do with this devastating attack. So where do we stand right now? There is 1 arrest, 1 person confirmed to be in custody, but that person has not yet been called a suspect, a conspirator in the mass murder that took place on Tuesday. That person is being held as a material witness. All of the others, although I think 2 or more remain in detention, have been cleared as having any connection to this mass murder that happened, the aircraft smashing into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Candace DeLong, formerly of the FBI, is this investigation going to have a lot of ebb and flow of this nature?
Yes, but it seems to be moving along fairly quickly, actually. The identification of all of the hijackers so quickly and where they went to flight school, and now being able to arrest this person that they're holding as a material witness. Cases of this magnitude, for the only thing close to it, of course, being Oklahoma City bombing in 1994, tend to move along very, very quickly.
You know, Steve Emerson, I'm wondering if they didn't expect and fully intend that we find out who they were. You know, the fact that it happened so quickly, with all due respect to the law enforcement agencies, particularly the FBI, that it was so easy to determine which of the 19 passengers on board these doomed airliners were the bad guys, would lead me to believe that and the fact that so many passengers were able to make cell phone calls would lead me to believe almost that they were rubbing salt in our wounds.
Well, they may not have cared whether their names were detected, because the real question is whether their handlers and their upper-level management, so to speak, of the terrorist group were to be detected. And I find very troubling, and I'm not blaming the FBI, but I think the investigation, if we look at the similar investigations like the 93 Trade Center bombing, they started wrapping it up within 3 days and started arresting people, 2, 3 people on the 3rd day, 4 people on the 5th day. They had almost all the people in custody by the 11th day. I have a feeling here we're not going to find any of the handlers, the people that put the infrastructure in place. So for all intents and purposes, just discovering the names isn't going to help us.
Are you suggesting that when those planes took off, the handlers split the country?
Or they may have even split the country before the planes took off. I mean, clearly the FBI is going through all the receipts, all the telephone logging bills, all the invoices, the credit card invoices, every single piece of paper. And they're tracking all the phone calls that were made from public telephone booths near the homes to the actual cell phones that the hijackers had in their own possessions. And they have yet to find the people in the United States. Now, I'm not suggesting that there aren't others. I am positive there's still a major network of Osama bin Laden supporters and terrorists on American soil. But those that actually crafted this terrorist operation, I think, have left the United States.
General Bernard Traynor, where, in all of this public display, with the president being joined by 4 of his predecessors, the entire cabinet, the Congress, everybody, the Supreme Court justices, all the first ladies going to the Washington National Cathedral, one person I did not see was the Vice President of the United States. I may be mistaken, but I did not see Dick Cheney. I heard a report yesterday that he was in Camp David. In fact, we reported that last night. But where is Dick Cheney? Is he, God forbid, has he been taken ill, or is he planning the specifics? He was Secretary of Defense. Is he planning the specifics on the mission to take out Osama bin Laden?
I don't think that's the case at all, Geraldo. You have the president and the vice president, and particularly in times of crisis, you want to keep them separated so that one hand grenade doesn't get them both. So I think that's the case. I think they're very sensitive to the possibility of assassination. So the president and the vice president remain separated, and I think the Speaker of the House also.
So do you believe that, with his expertise in the area of the Pentagon, the military, defense, and offense, Dick Cheney may be the point man in plotting our response?
Well, I don't think he's going to be the point man. He'll be part of the corporate body that will work on the subject, and I think he's doing that right now. But no one man is going to be the leader in this sort of thing. I mean, this is an administration that operates as a team, and at the present time, they're assessing the situation and coming up with the viable courses of action, which would include the vice president, along with the rest of the staff.
Let me ask Colonel David Hackworth. I know your sources tend to be different than the official government-type sources. Do your sources, so steeped in military as they are, confirm to you privately that Osama bin Laden is indeed the head perpetrator of this mass murder?
Right from the beginning, 100%. But I got to tell you, I'm angry. And I'm angry at our government. I'm angry at what the terrorists have done. And I'm angry that guys like Emerson and myself, for the past 10 years, have been saying, this is the future war. I wrote a piece not long ago in May, and it was Rumsfeld, we don't need your wall. Let's get ready for terrorism. But when this happens, we see our intelligence community couldn't do the job, our FBI couldn't do the job, and the people in charge of our government just missed it and got us ready for World War II all over again in the 21st century, instead of getting us ready for this kind of war, which was so obvious to so many people who've been preaching to the government and the leadership, let's get ready for this war.
All right, let me take our first break. We have commercials again after a couple of days of omitting them out of respect for the victims in the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. So let's take a quick break. We'll continue this discussion. I have an exclusive interview with the former Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu coming up. Please stay tuned.
Want more from a sport utility? Test drive the all-wheel drive Subaru Outback. More ground clearance than a Ford Explorer Sport. More cargo space than a Jeep Cherokee. More miles per gallon than any leading midsize SUV. Add a smooth car-like ride and you have a sport utility with a whole lot more. Outback, the world's first sport utility wagon.
Now you can get an APR as low as 2.9% on all 2002 Outback models.
I was looking to protect what I have and to achieve some modest growth. I knew I lacked investment skills, and I knew I needed professional assistance. Prudential gave me a good feeling that this guy or these people don't have an agenda of their own. There's a lot that I don't understand, but that's where I really lean more heavily on my advisor at Prudential. I'm impressed by their thoroughness, and I'm impressed by their detail. I think I found the right people.
What Bridgestone learns on the track, we put into our tires. Like the Dueler, engineered to distinctly boost your confidence, on road or off. The distinction is Bridgestone. Receive a free pair of Olympus Trooper binoculars when you purchase 4 select Bridgestone Dueler tires. Certain conditions apply.
There's a new communications network so powerful and reliable, it gives you time to think about business instead of business communications.
Oh, man.
Introducing the Comcast Business Communications Optical Network with virtually unlimited capacity.
Periwinkle. Let's paint the lunchroom periwinkle, huh?
Of course, there may be such a thing as having too much time. Comcast Business Communications. Run with it.
The game gets passed down. My father, me, and so on.
See, that's a strike.
That's called painting the corners.
Which guys do you like?
The guys with the blue hats.
I like the guys with the blue hats, too.
Hey, you want to go to the game to see the guys in the blue hats?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's buy some tickets.
Everything we do is about connecting you to the stuff you love most. Comcast.
Bell rings, Squawk Box is there. Get first moments and reactions as Wall Street goes back to work, beginning 7 a.m. Eastern on CNBC.
A grim and beautiful, in its own nightmarish way, shot of New York. Live shot. You pan in and you see workers, like an anthill of workers, heroic workers, American flag fluttering in the light breeze. Now the rain has stopped. Dr. Barbara Arnott, you're NBC's chief medical correspondent. You're a licensed pilot. You're a man who's covered major earthquakes over the past decade. You know, I covered lots of earthquakes myself, everything from baby Jessica to the Oklahoma City bombing. It's cruel to say it, perhaps, so maybe it's cruel to pretend otherwise, but isn't it likely that the vast majority, if not all of the people under that rubble are dead?
It is, Geraldo, and as you point out, if you look at all of the natural disasters, this is very closest to an earthquake. If you look at, for instance, the earthquake in Armenia, you had this same kind of pancaking of buildings where one floor goes and the next, in a very quick fashion. And there are some interesting structural questions being raised tonight about the World Trade Center and whether it was especially vulnerable to this kind of pancaking. Now, from the experience that I've had in dozens of different earthquakes around the world, you're exactly right. You know, the vast majority of people are dead, and dead right away because of the tremendous weight that has crushed them. Then you have a subset of patients who have crush injuries with smaller buildings, and they tend to have kidney failure because of the tremendous amount of what we call myoglobin that comes out of muscle and jams the kidneys. And then the rest of the injuries after that, you may have some burn injuries, but they tend to be fairly minor. But unfortunately, as you point out, with a really earthquake-like disaster like this, the vast majority of people are killed right away, and it's only a very small minority that do survive.
Now put on your pilot's hat, Bob, if you would. I heard the pilots propose today, A, that they be armed, that at least one pilot of the usually 2 in crew be armed, and that the door between the main cabin and the cockpit be made invulnerable. What do you think?
Well, I took the first flight into JFK yesterday from Phoenix to sort of test the system out. And when I looked at it, it really wasn't very much different than the old system. That is, you had to show a picture ID when you went through security. And otherwise, outside of the plastic knife they now give you on board, there wasn't much difference. But sure, if you look at El Al, which has had really the best overall airline security, they have an extra door. And what makes the most sense is not to have the pilots be cowboys with guns and have to fly the airplane, is you have the extra door and you have an armed guard. El Al has done that, it works. Then you looked at beefed up security. Take as an example Heathrow Airport in London, where it's a serious operation, where they go through every last bit of your luggage, and whether you're Diane Ross or you're a ordinary mortal, they show no real difference. I mean, you are going to be examined top to bottom to make sure that you have absolutely nothing with you. So I don't think they've been real serious about that. But Geraldo, the thing I've been most upset about is this. As a licensed pilot, if I'm what's called an instrument flight plan, and I deviate by a couple of miles, or I make a 100-degree turn from Albany going out towards Los Angeles, towards New York City, it's as if you go past a traffic cop at 140 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. It's outrageous. And so air traffic controllers immediately sort of go to DEFCON 5. But what's strange here is that there weren't interceptors that were up. You'll remember with Payne Stewart, when his plane went off course, it was supposed to make a left-hand turn out of Florida towards Texas and went straight. They had F-16s up there, not because they thought there was a hijacker, but because of the risk that that plane might crash into a city someplace. So with these planes so off course, why weren't they concerned? Not necessarily about a hijacking, but perhaps the pilots were incapacitated. What if this plane flew sort of unpiloted into the World Trade Center? It just seems crazy that there weren't some kind of provisions. And most importantly, to my way of thinking and that of many experts, the most logical way for years for any terrorist to strike at the heart of America with a major attack, not just a small bomb, but a major attack, was by hijacking a commercial airliner or loading up a great big private executive jet with C4 explosives. And so it's just very surprising that there wasn't a contingency plan. You know, one of these planes, the United flight that hit the second tower, actually went within about 4 air minutes of a National Guard base that have F-16s, in fact, close to where you live down there in New Jersey.
Well,
so
the problem is, what do you do? You're going to shoot down a plane packed with... I've got to take a quick break, Dr. Arnott, but we'll discuss that. The dilemma, what do you do? Can you shoot down a plane full of innocent civilians?
You only have a chance when you're in the air.
Okay, let's quick break. Be right back.
The Doobie Brothers' greatest hits. This first and only complete career retrospective features 30 years of Doobie Brothers hits on one CD or one cassette. The Doobie Brothers' greatest hits features all of the good time tunes you'll never forget, including Listen to the Music and the #1 hits Blackwater.
I like to hear some funky Dixieland, pretty mama, come and take me by the...
And What a Fool Believes. The Doobie Brothers' greatest hits. 20 essential tracks on one album. Just $18.98 CD or $15.98 cassette. The Doobie Brothers' greatest hits also features classic hits like China Grove, Minute by Minute, Long Train Runnin', Rockin' Down the Highway, Take Me in Your Arms, Rock Me, The Doctor, Real Love. Taking It to the Streets, and many more huge rock hits. Order the Doobie Brothers' greatest hits now. Listen to the music one more time. All of the mega rock hits you still hear on the radio are on the Doobie Brothers' greatest hits. To order the Doobie Brothers' greatest hits, call the number on your screen or send $18.98 CD or $15.98 cassette plus $4.95 shipping and handling to the address shown. Call now. Rush delivery available.
The Market Reopening Information Center on CNBC. Information you need to get back to business, including logistics on transportation to the financial district, security and safety procedures, public health information, employee notices, and live phone and email question response. Sunday, 4 to 8 p.m. Eastern on CNBC.
Let's roll tape J. This is my favorite soundbite from the President, George W. Bush. Roll tape J.
War has been waged against us by stealth and deceit and murder. This nation is peaceful, but fierce when stirred to anger. This conflict was begun on the timing and terms of others. It will end in a way and at an hour of our choosing.
Colonel Hackworth, even though you are angry at the United States for not heeding the warnings that you and people like Steve Emerson have been promulgating, broadcasting for more than 10 years now, isn't it true that the United States is like that sleeping giant? Aren't we now aroused? Won't this now be, the fury of democracy unleashed on these bad guys? Isn't there a chance, a slim chance, but a chance that we will succeed in eradicating at least the upper tiers of this cancerous terrorist body?
If we fight the terrorism with 21st century techniques, I'm worried from what I see of the recall of the reservists and so on, that we're about to go at it kind of like Vietnam, with a big sledgehammer, bashing everything in our path, rather than with a stiletto and quickly take out what we want. Like Osama bin Laden, we want the leadership of terrorism in Iran, Iraq, Libya, Lebanon, and so on. We want, but we have to find out where they are. Right at this moment, no one knows where Osama bin Laden is. Why drop all that firepower all over Afghanistan or wherever if we don't know where our target is? We did that in Vietnam, and we lost.
General Bernard Traynor, I've just given you a field promotion. You're in charge of this response. What do you do? Do you send out assassins, or do you send out the B-52s?
I think what you have to do is look at what the president has proposed. It's going to be a major campaign, not against...
Persian Gulf type campaign?
No. And it's not against bin Laden. It's against the whole business, the transnational terrorist organization. And the best way to get at something like that is to ensure that you cut the umbilical cord, the life support system that keeps these things going and allows them to do the things that we saw last Tuesday. Now, if you look at last Tuesday's operation, that was a very, very well-planned operation. It was long in the making. It was enormously expensive. I don't think bin Laden or any of the individual terrorists out there have the capability, the management capability, the planning capability to put something like that together by themselves. They had to have support from a nation state. They had to have a lot of effect. So I think this is what the president has in mind when he says the nations that harbor these people are going to be equally as responsible as the terrorists themselves, and that's the key. You cut off their life support system and they're going to wither on the vine, because then they'll just become a nuisance and not a real capability. There's a dual track, however, is that when you get intelligence, which is key to this whole thing, developing intelligence that is worthwhile, and that's why the coalition is so important, because they can provide information that we don't have. But then you go after individuals and individual groups. It's a dual track thing, and it's going to be progressive over a long period of time, but it will work.
Quick break. Benjamin Netanyahu when we come back.
Nobody takes you inside the markets like Maria Bartiromo.
I'll tell you what I'm hearing. You'll see what happened the previous week, why, and what my sources say will happen now.
Among the highest number of graduates in computer science and engineering in the country, over 4,700 graduates in computer and information sciences, over 5,000 graduates in engineering, including chemical and bioengineering, and they all graduated from the same place. Just who produces this kind of talent for the workforce each and every year?
Pennsylvania.
I remember 20 years ago how they turned the racing world upside down. First by introducing a race car with quattro all-wheel drive, and second by having a woman drive it.
Over the years, we've gathered some of the brightest stars in insurance and investments, plus some of the brightest stars in securities brokerage and financial services. And we put them all together into one extraordinary company. Today, that company has a proud new name, Prudential Financial, growing and protecting your wealth.
Warning. Your death could suddenly plunge your family deeply into debt. Don't let it happen.
I'm Mickey Rooney.
And it's a sad fact that your loved ones could be faced with the need to pay thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars of your bills. Where in the world could they get the money quickly to pay those debts? Well, that's where Value Guard comes in. Value Guard is a whole life insurance plan from Garden State Life that can help your family pay funeral costs and other final expenses such as leftover medical bills, credit cards, and other debts. Value Guard is easy to afford and easy to apply for. There's just a short, simple application and no medical exam ever. And your premiums never go up. Your coverage never goes down. That's guaranteed by Garden State Life, a company you can trust. So don't wait. Call today for free information.
800-982-2600. Value Guard Life from Garden State Life Insurance Company. 800-982-2600. Call now.
Joining us now, an old friend, Benjamin Netanyahu has long been Israel's most eloquent spokesman, most recently as his country's prime minister, before that as its ambassador to the United Nations and its deputy foreign minister. Mr. Netanyahu is a man whose life was forever changed by terrorism when his brother, a hero, Colonel Jonathan Netanyahu, was killed during Israel's brilliantly successful 1976 rescue of hijacked hostages at Entebbe. Mr. Prime Minister, welcome. Why was the United States hit so savagely? What was the objective of these terrorists?
What we're dealing with are terrorist attacks launched by Islamic militants who enjoy the support of radical states in the Middle East. This militant Islam, I think, perverts and distorts one of the world's great religions. They want to reverse history. They really don't accept the last 1,000 years of history in which Islam receded and the West and democracy became the primary force in the world. And so they want to roll back time. And in order to do that, they have to strike at the main bastion of the Western democracy, and that's the United States. And so they hit you now, and they'll hit you again, because their objective is literally to destroy the United States. If they can't destroy it, they can hit it and strike it, and at least crush its will, and bring it to its knees. This may sound fantastic, but that's exactly what they think. And this is inspired again and again by Islamic militant teachings, and of course by the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is what the Ayatollah Khomeini was all about. So they see the United States as the great Satan. We in Israel, by the way, are the little Satan. If Belgium was in our place right here in the Middle East, it would also be a little Satan. And they go after the United States, and they'll go after it again.
But what could they hope to achieve, Mr. Prime Minister? They kill 5,000. They screw up the city of New York's skyline. Perhaps they scar our soul, but all they've done is increase the steel of America's resolve. Now they have wakened the sleeping giant. Don't you agree?
Yes, but I think this is a wake-up call from hell, because they don't intend to stay where they are. They're constantly developing greater technical proficiency. And the radical regimes, specifically Iran and Iraq, that are part of this terror network, are developing weapons of mass destruction. So the next time, as horrific as this attack was, as horrible and agonizing and loss of life, the next time you will see not thousands or 10,000 people die in New York, but millions. In other words, once this Islamic militancy acquires nuclear weapons, they might change history. They might destroy our civilization, our freedoms, our democracy that they hate so much. And therefore, this wake-up call that we've received is a summons to action. It says that unless we act now to dismantle this terror network of terrorist states manipulating terrorist groups in the Middle East and beyond, then our future is in doubt. They have the will to destroy us. They don't have the power today. We have the power today to crush them. We now must show that we have the will to do so.
You wrote in your book 5 years ago, Fighting Terrorism, How Democracies Can Defeat Domestic and International Terrorism, I'll quote, "In the worst scenario, the consequences could not be a car bomb, but a nuclear bomb in the basement of the World Trade Center." You know, you got the location right, the weapon wrong, but they didn't even need a nuclear weapon. Do you really envision the obtaining of weapons of mass destruction by these very same personalities or people like them, and that they would have the will to deliver even an Armageddon kind of blow to the United States?
Do you have any doubt? I mean, okay, they didn't use nuclear bombs because they don't have them, but they used a 350-ton conventional bomb, 350 tons of conventional bombs. with all that fuel, and that is far more powerful than anything an F-16 could launch in terms of conventional weapons. So they're well on their way. But it is important to understand that none of these groups, not bin Laden, not the Hamas and Hezbollah and the Fatah Fatah groups, Arafat's own group that formed this network of terror, none of them could act without states, without terrorist regimes. It's important to understand that. These terrorists don't float in the air. They need territory. They need a place to be launched from, to come back to coordinate. That is, those who don't commit suicide, those who orchestrate, plan, execute, arm, dispatch these terrorists. They need a place to be, and that place to be is a handful of states in the Middle East: Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, a few Arab states, and indeed this complex that includes also Arafat's own Palestinian domain, which has become, in fact, the factory of suicide bombs. Arafat has summer camps. Geraldo, he has summer camps in Gaza where Hamas and Islamic Jihad teach Palestinian children to become suicide bombers. He's preparing the kamikaze pilots not only of today, but of tomorrow. So this network that whose various parts support one another, help each other in materiel, help each other in political support in these abominable resolutions they passed in Durban the other day, this network itself has to be dismantled, because if it's not dismantled, the answer is yes, they will develop atomic weapons. They already have ballistic missiles, two of these states. They already have chemical and biological weapons. They're well on their way to developing atomic bombs. And if they do, then history will change. History is not ended, unlike what Francis Fukuyama wrote, with the triumph of capitalism and democracy over communism. In fact, there is a new conflict. And this is the threat of this Islamic militancy coupled with affiliated Arab terrorist groups who seek to destroy the West. Nothing short of that. What we have to make clear is that terrorism is an indivisible evil. It is evil everywhere, and the success of terrorists in one part of the world emboldens terrorists elsewhere. So we have to adopt the same kind of attitude that the civilized powers adopted against piracy in the 19th century, against Nazism in the 20th century. We now have to adopt against terrorism in the 21st century. It is a crime against humanity. It is evil at all times. It is unpardonable. There are no excuses and no concession to terrorism. And the terrorists and those who support them are enemies of mankind. We will fight them resolutely. I think this attitude will produce the necessary action. And I think that President Bush has been wise to call a global war of the democracies against terrorism.
Mr. Prime Minister, shalom. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you think, Steve, that this whole notion of nuclear weapons really is something that could be part of the grim future?
There's no doubt that in the trial of the embassy defendants, the trial of the defendants in the embassy trials last year in the 1998 in Kenya and Tanzania, it was revealed that Osama bin Laden was trying to acquire nuclear weapons and actually acquired plutonium. So he may well have acquired some of the components. And it was also revealed that he was trying to acquire chemical and biological weapons. So unfortunately, the worst nightmare of counter-terrorist planners is here on American soil. One thing I would add is that...
What do you mean? What do you mean by that, Steve?
The fact is the genie's out of the bottle. And the genie's out of the bottle with chemical and biological weapons. The genie's out of the bottle with the fact that the infrastructure is here on American soil. We're not going to be able to just round up all of the bin Laden terrorists, all the Hamas terrorists that are operating in the United States today. They're too far entrenched right now. And so it's going to require several major changes in our attitude toward law enforcement. The point I want to get is we're going to have to get our own house in order as well, besides getting Afghanistan in order and Lebanon and the Bekaa Valley in order. There are many groups operating in the United States. And these groups hide under the humanitarian cover that they're just providing, you know, comfort to hungry children and women and educational programs. But in fact, they're covers for militant terrorist groups. And we have to be willing to denounce these groups, but also take away their tax exemptions and take away their ability to operate in the United States, recruit new terrorists. Essentially, the U.S. has become, I've said this in the past, occupied fundamentalist territory. Every single one of the militant Islamic groups in the world have a presence or headquarters in the United States today. It's a stark fact, but undeniable.
Candace DeLong, that's your jurisdiction, the domestic boundaries of the United States of America. I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to put every Arab American organization out of business or under the kind of surveillance necessary to determine which of the 1,000 members, say, which one of them or two, whatever it is, if any, is the mole, is the terrorist in training or in waiting?
Well, excuse me, well, no, shouldn't put every Arab American organization under suspicion or under surveillance. However, perhaps it would be helpful in the long run if we were able to do electronic surveillance, wiretaps, of suspected terrorist groups or organizations that we feel may be assisting them without having to go through the extensive morass of bureaucracy through the United States court system to get these wiretaps up. If if it is a matter of national security, then some of the red tape should be cut away.
All right, let me just say that Colonel Hackworth, just very briefly, he said Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq. That is that's half a continent, and it's very sparsely populated. The people who run those countries very, very just filled with hatred for the United States. That's just over there. So you fight that war over there, and then the whole other war here at home?
Yeah, it must be a global effort of every nation coming together in an organization similar to NATO in Europe, where they will not condone a terrorist to have safe harbor in any state. And if they do, then they become a terrorist state and must be dealt with not only with the military solution, which we seem always to be quick to use, but every other solution, the diplomatic, the economical, the financial. For example, in the master terrorist Osama bin Laden's case, he's reputed to have millions upon millions of dollars. It's in a bank somewhere. Let's go get it. So what we need to do is get the whole world working together. Red China, Russia, who've been under these type savage attacks in Moscow, not as severe, but everyone working together, pulling together. And that means at the same time that all of our intelligence agencies are working together. The FBI is beefed up. They've been hitchhiking to work for too long when we're spending a fortune on new weaponry, F-22 fighters, a defense shield that'll cost $100 billion, and we're not giving the FBI the necessary gear to do the job.
We've just been notified because of the power disruption in New York. This program has just been extended. We'll be going until 11 o'clock Eastern Time, 8 o'clock Pacific Time. So stay with us for the next hour and 15 minutes as I probe the minds of this fine panel and we try to advance the state of our knowledge as to where we stand exactly with this massive investigation into who committed the atrocity on Tuesday. Stand by. We'll be right back.
Monday, Wall Street goes back to work. America gets back to business. A new day for markets and investors. What more will the opening bell signal when America's financial center is up and running? Sunday night, CNBC brings you a special 2-hour business center beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern.
It takes a worried man to sing a worried song. It takes a worried
They were the greatest folk group of all time.
Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Hang down your head and cry.
Presenting the very best of the Kingston Trio.
So here we are in the Tijuana jail. Ain't got no friends to go.
All the unforgettable hits.
And I don't give a about a greenback $1. Spend it fast as
All
I
the
can.
folk classics.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From
the great story songs.
He rode easy in the saddle. He was tall and lean, and at first you thought nothing but a streak of mean could make
Songs that touched a generation.
Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all
Get the Kingston Trio. 30 classics on 2 CDs or 2 cassettes.
Well, did he ever return? No, he never returned, and his fate is still unlearned. He may ride forever.
All the Kingston Trio hits in one complete collection.
Raspberries, strawberries, the good wines we brew. Here's to the girls of the countryside, the ones we drink 'em to.
So call now and enjoy these folk classics.
If you miss the train I'm on, you will know that I am gone.
To order the Kingston Trio, use your credit card and call 1-800-648-5252. That's 1-800-648-5252. Or send $24.99 for 2 CDs or 2 cassettes, plus $4.99 shipping and handling to the Kingston Trio, Department 3, Richmond, Virginia 23280, or order online at heartlandmusic.com.
Today, Afghanistan's leaders, the radical Taliban, growing more defiant, vowing to seek revenge if America strikes at them because of the World Trade Center attack. The Taliban continuing to insist Osama bin Laden, hiding and protected in Afghanistan, does not have the ability to carry out such a sophisticated attack.
Training of pilots.
Bin Laden has no pilots, he says. Where could he train them? Throughout the Muslim world, prayers for unity. Many worshippers condemning terrorism, insisting Islam is a religion of peace, and fearful of widespread suffering if America punishes Afghanistan.
Yes, we concern. We concern. Because they are innocent people. Afghanistan is innocent people there.
People in Afghanistan continue fleeing, many heading for refugee camps here in Pakistan, already crowded with victims of drought and decades of civil war. Some experts think the Taliban is bracing for war.
Under no circumstances will Osama be handed over to the Americans or to anybody else by the Taliban if it's only going to be a question of applying force and demanding Osama.
The U.S. is continuing to pressure Pakistan, a country with close ties to the Taliban leaders, to help get bin Laden.
The intelligence that Pakistan has about the Taliban is unrivaled. The question is whether, in terms of its domestic politics, it feels it can afford to give it.
3 years ago, angry demonstrators took to the streets after Pakistan allowed the U.S. to fire cruise missiles over its territory, attacking bin Laden for bombing 2 U.S. embassies in Africa. That's why Pakistan now weighing heavily how much to cooperate with the U.S. Pakistan's National Security Council considers America's demands at a high-level meeting tomorrow. The choice, giving the U.S. what it wants, and then perhaps facing a huge uprising at home. Ron Allen, NBC News, Islamabad, Pakistan.
Ron, thanks. General Bernard Traynor, you have a situation where Pakistan, even if they were absolutely grimly determined to do everything they could to help us, there is no guarantee that government there, that military government there, would survive, given the feeling among many average Pakistanis that the United States is the enemy, that the Taliban, fellow Muslims are their friends.
That's kind of tough, isn't it? I mean, for how many years we heard this business, oh, America, we really support you, but we can't say it publicly because of